Hey, listeners, welcome. I didn't expect to see you today. I was on the beach, I was relaxing, having a good time. Oh, wait, don't get me wrong. Any day with you is a good time, but please take a seat on the sand, enjoy yourself. Relax, enjoy the sunset, it's beautiful out. How about this? I don't have my usual tales for you, but let us sit back and relax and let the adventurers themselves tell us how they got on this wonderful journey.
A veteran of the Alhassan conflict on his home isle of Evermeet, Elduin Lunare is a finely trained fighter. Taught by his fellow moon elves how to weave magic into his shots, he is a feared bowman and none too shabby with a quick sword. Stationed to guard the sanctuary of the elves, he has done his duty always. Unlike his valor, his considerable curiosity was not welcomed by the commanders, or his mother. Pragmatic, ethnocentric, and perhaps a touch haughty, Actea would rather see him a general or some grand lord of Evermeet. Her son, in his boredom on watch, was practicing how to make fancy shapes with the sea breeze. In his downtime, Elduin pursued history, cartography, a bit of ritual magic, and the sampling of any and every imported good he could get his hands on. Whatever got his mind exploring, trying new things, and away from Evermeet was a welcome endeavor. Summoned by the magics he had learned, Elduin was joined by the fey familiar he calls Teak. A wonderful companion, Teak assisted him with his military duties and fed his wanderlust with fantastic visions of the Feywild. Eventually, an opportunity arose for him to actually make something of his exploratory yearning. Every 500 years, the elves of Evermeet send an emissary out to travel Toril, collect news, map the lands, and report back the state of affairs. Typically a 50-year journey, the lemma, as it is called, is used to educate the elves of Evermeet. Who rules other lands? What threats are lurking? Who or what might be of interest? The emissary is instructed to stay out of politics, to not take sides, and to generally remain an observer. With the encouragement of his father, Basero, and Teak, Elduin volunteered for the lemma. His fighting capabilities, dutiful military record, and practiced cartographical skill put him first in line, and he was chosen as the emissary. Finally given a chance to leave Evermeet and explore Toril, Elduin wished to see and experience a great many things. In particular, he had a fondness for a naturalist's manuscript, which instilled with him a great desire to see an owlbear in person. Climbing aboard a ship with maps, journals, and a few tokens of his people, Elduin headed off.
His story is not a happy one. It is not filled with tales of discovery and triumph, no riches or fame. There is no love to be found and no treasure to be had. The story of the loving Loud Scout is only full of sadness and sorrow. Being a Svirfneblin, Loud Scout was born deep in the Underdark. His family was the Stonehammers. They lived in a large colony built entirely of other deep gnomes in a massive catacomb of tunnels and caves that they fashioned into their home a long, long way from the surface. His family was hardworking and well known for their involvement in the carving out of their settlement, as they were direct ancestors of some of the original gnomes that settled in this place and turned it into the home they now know. Almost all the members of his family were architects or stoneworkers, constantly looking to improve upon and expand on their homes in the deep caves, all except for Loud Scout. However, he was not always called Loud Scout, as the Svirfneblin can have a tendency to give each other new names that they base off some memorable trait or instance in their life. The first name he was given was Rockbiter, as he thoroughly enjoyed sucking and chewing on pebbles as a young child. As part of this, he was always wandering off when playing with the other little ones to find tasty pebbles. One day when doing so, he found the tastiest one he had ever found, a large chunk of crystal that was such a deep purple and so dense that it almost seemed black. This stone, though, was too tough for even Rockbiter to enjoy it as a treat. He was still very intrigued by the stone, however, and decided to keep it. Little did anyone know, though, young Rockbiter was born with magical abilities that do not normally flow within the deep gnomes. The signs of his powers started at a young age, weak at first. Little sparks flickering off the end of his fingers, things beginning to smoke if held too tightly. Nothing too serious, until he began to get older. If one had known any better, they may even be able to say the finding of his pretty crystal may have helped these powers flow. As he continued to grow, it became quickly apparent that his powers were much more than the fun little tricks and self-disguising that most Svirfneblin would learn. As he grew, so did the intensity of his powers. as well as his ability to keep them in check. After an incident where he had set the younger of his two brothers' clothes ablaze on accident, almost seriously injuring him, he was taken to one of the few gnomes that actually studied and practiced magic in hopes of actually being able to learn to control the power that he possessed. He decided from a young age that he wanted to join the scouting crews the settlement would send out to the surface for information and setting traps in the vast twisting network of caves that led to their home. However, not being able to control his gift was a big concern that was halting the progress of his goal. He worked with this mentor who was known in this community as Trickster, due to his special ability of being able to hide himself and be disguised without recognition even among his closest of kin. He worked hard and practiced daily. After a few years, he had learned a great amount of control and was finally approved to begin his training with the other scouts. His work with his magic mentor had given him enough control over himself to use his magic to have an upper hand that the other scouts didn't have. Some were jealous at first, others were wary and distrusting. His first couple missions went perfectly well. He completed his tasks, he went unnoticed, he was done in a timely manner. However, after just a few years, his problems began to rise again. He started having trouble with his spells that helped keep him hidden, accidentally casting spells he didn't even know he was able to use. A lot of them caused loud noises, making him stick out and almost ruined a few of their outings by nearly exposing himself and his group, thus earning him his new name, Loud Scout. One time while trying to disguise himself, he instead unleashed a wild fury of lightning energy on himself, electrocuting himself so badly he was knocked unconscious and had to be carried back to the settlement for medical attention. This last incident was the final straw. After recovering, he was told that he was a liability and a danger to his companions and was told he could no longer accompany the scouting crews. He was devastated. Just as well, his siblings' disappointment for his lack of control over his powers had blossomed to its highest point yet. He went on for a few more years trying to find his place elsewhere among the community. He got by fine at first, trying to do things that he could do without using his magic. Setting up traps in the caverns, delivering messages and packages, and even a little manual labor under his oldest brother, Thactor, one of the biggest and strongest gnomes in the settlement. He was in charge of clearing out new caverns for the colony, doing most of his work with the giant hammers their family was known for. As days went by, the longing for Loud Scout to use his magic grew heavier and heavier. He started to find time to be alone and would use the simplest spells he knew just to manipulate and move around little rocks to entertain himself. But his longing still continued to grow. He had learned an incredibly great deal of control over himself, however unaware that no matter what he did, he could not keep his raw power hidden forever. One day, deep in the catacombs just outside his village, his powers swelled and he was not able to keep them at bay. And when they escaped his control, it caused a tragic accident too horrifying to speak of. His people were already wary of him before, but after this, they were now absolutely terrified of him. The entire settlement knew he didn't mean to cause any harm, but he was obviously a danger to them all. So as a final solution to the problem, they decided on exile. He was escorted to the surface where he was given basic supplies and a haunting memory of the pain he had caused. As he was told, he was never to return, and if he was ever caught in their area of the Underdark, it would mean his life. He wandered for months on his own, trying to keep to himself, hiding from anyone that came near him, depression crushing his heart, mind, and soul. Then one day he was caught off guard by a group of travelers that happened past a camp he had made for himself. They were friendly and treated him kindly, something he definitely was not used to. They shared their supplies and their food. They even left him a special treat when they parted ways, a bottle filled with a beverage called brandy. Alcohol, one put it. It makes things better. That night, while he was alone, he got his first taste of alcohol. It was terrible at first, he thought, but as he got a couple more drinks in, he realized what the man meant. It made it easier, if not just for a bit, for him to not think about the things he had done. After a bit more, it made him numb, and the less he could feel from his past, the better.
Metolius Blackthorn comes from the high forest along the sword coast of Faerun. He made his living guiding travelers through the forest and vanquishing creatures that threatened the good folk of the land. Born in Silvery Moon to a human mother and an elf father, his mother was a performer of some repute and still lives there. She taught him the ways of lute and song. Metolius learned how to traverse the wilds from his father, who also offered his services as a ranger throughout the nearby lands. When Metolius was 16, he and his father were hunting in the high forest when they were assaulted by several trolls, and his father was killed. He would have also lost his life that day if it had not been for the intervention made by a unicorn, stopping the monsters and spiriting Metolius' way to safety. The unicorn brought him to the tranquil glade of Maliki, the forest queen, The goddess wiped the tears from his eyes and told him that his time had not come. She had a greater purpose for him if he would be her champion, and he accepted. Bestowing her divine gift upon Metolius and teaching him the ways of the forested domain, he has done many good deeds in her name over the last 12 years. One night, Gwayron Windstrom, the mouth of Maliki and patron god of trackers and rangers, came to Metolius in a dream. He instructed him to investigate the crypt of a moon elf tribe whose name has been lost to time. Metolius traveled to the eastern edge of the forest, near the blasted ruins of Karsus, the site of an ancient cataclysmic event. Delving deep into the crypt, he was assaulted by a fierce elven wraith wielding a spectral sword. After a long and harrowing battle, the wraith was banished back to the grave. There, in the crypt, Metolius found texts referring to an ancient organization dedicated to standing against the darkness when the twilight of Toril was nigh, and a magical shield emblazoned with the symbol of an eye. With this knowledge, Gwayron sent Metolius across the Sea of Swords to seek an island steeped in mystery for more answers about this ancient order and the doom they seemed to portend.
Hey all, Chris here. I'm really sorry to interrupt the intros, but I wanted to let you all know we got our very first sponsor. Super excited about it. It's from the site dicebar.com. It's a place you can go to find a wide variety of wonderful looking dice, including metal ones, marbled, even glow in the dark in multiple different colors. They also sell a few different dice kits, which are super cool. Their 29-piece adventure kit allows you to never need to ask to borrow dice or reroll dice again. They come with 8d6 for a fireball, 5d10, 5d8, and 4d4 for potions of healing, as well as healing spells, 2d12, and 2d20s. I found that they also have a 10-piece dice set, which includes not only the basic set, but a d24, a d30, and a d60 that all come in a beautiful velvet bag. You can't go wrong. I'd also recommend checking out their t-shirts. They are super cool. So once you've chosen the thing you wanted to purchase, you go to the shopping cart and remember to click on the Add Coupon Here button. There, enter the coupon code SWORDCAST, SWORDCAST, all one word, all capital letters, and get free expedited shipping to all of you listeners. I'm so excited to share it with you. For now, remember, if you go to dicebar.com, they have everything you need to play D&D as long as all you need is dice. Okay, for now, let's get back to the intros.
Rain never really had a home, but then again, she never really wanted one either. She made her way as a young tiefling on the streets of Neverwinter, living off the kindness of strangers. She knew how to charm her way into the hearts of travelers for a few coins or a hot meal, but as she grew up, her tricks didn't work quite like they used to. The adorable young girl act quickly started to look like, well, a pathetic vagrant begging for spare copper. So instead of begging for her food, she learned to just take it. What started out as loaves of bread and fresh fruit in her teens became pickpocketing travelers and lifting weapons in adulthood. And man, she was good at it. Between her agility and her natural ability to create darkness from nothing, Rain may have just been the best thief in the city. She started to make a real name for herself in the back alleys of Neverwinter. And that's how she got noticed by the Zentarim, known more colloquially as the Black Network. On the surface, the Zentarim were an organization of hireable mercenaries, the best on the market. Behind the scenes, however, they were a criminal organization, concentrated on amassing wealth and influence along the Sword Coast. They approached her with a job, and she was weary at first, having never been the type to work for someone else's gain. But the money was good, so she accepted. That first job turned into a second, and a third, and soon she had a steady gig on her hands. It was a good arrangement. She stole what they wanted, they gave her coin. She didn't have to find buyers for stolen goods anymore, and they kept her pockets full and the ale flowing. Life was good. That's when she met Tarkus. Tarkus was another tiefling who was quite a few ranks above her in the Zentarim hierarchy. He was involved with the more political side of things, the kind of things that Rain never really bothered with, but that didn't stop them from hitting it off. The next few months were a blur. With Tarkus's influence, she became more involved in high-profile missions. The money more than doubled. Life was moving faster than it ever had before. The Zentarim even started training her. They recognized that her skills could be used for so much more than thievery. And then one day it happened. She was given a mission not to steal something, but to assassinate a local guild leader. It terrified her to her core, but she knew it meant more money and more respect. That mission ended up being her first kill. Turned out she was just as good an assassin as she ever was a thief. She continued to have a long career as an assassin for the Black Network and got a couple dozen more kills under her belt, mostly resistors of the network and small local officials. The last mission she was given, however, was to assassinate the self-appointed leader of Neverwinter himself, Lord Protector Neverember. Something didn't feel right about this one from the get-go. It was too easy. There were no guards posted, it was impossibly quiet. She would have jumped ship if the mission weren't so sensitive. As she was sneaking into his chambers, lo and behold, the city guard arrived so fast it was like they were waiting for her. They knew she was coming. They had to have. After she was caught, the Zentarim broke all ties with her. She never even saw Tarkus again. She managed to escape the prison before her execution, but the life she knew before was gone, and she had no choice but to run, to this day, still wondering who set her up that night.
Grimtuck was born the first son of Grimvar, chief of the Shatterchain tribe. From the moment of his birth, he was groomed to be chief of his clan, and everything he did held firm that goal in mind. Large even as a child, he excelled as a warrior, hunter, and sportsman. The role of chief is not a hereditary role amongst the Shatterchains, and as a tribe at war with their eternal enemies, the Crimson Tears, long lives aren't often afforded to the warriors of their clan. It is for this reason that Chief Grimvar decided to appoint an heir. When Grimtuck came of age, Chief Grimvar, the grandfather shaman, a grizzled old dwarven druid and spiritual leader to the people, and a collective of tribal elders convened to discuss the succession. The ceremony was held wherein they fasted, consulted runes, got very, very drunk, and addressed the issue of whom would ascend to the role of chief once Grimvar stepped down or died. It was to no surprise Grimtuck was chosen, but this did not guarantee him the role. Before being appointed heir to the title of chief, he would need to take part in what was known as the Ritual of Many Colors, wherein he would commune with the spirits of nature, show proper respect to the land, and pay homage to the sacred forest of the people. So upon his 16th name day, he walked deep into the forest accompanied by the grizzled old grandfather shaman. They traversed many leagues through powerfully ancient old growth, along secret and dangerous paths known only to the shaman, before arriving at a small, beautiful clearing. It was nearing dusk on a beautiful summer evening, and upon making camp directly in the center of the clearing, Grimtuck was told to collect handfuls of a certain berry unknown to Grimtuck. The berries seemed to only grow near the base of the trees encircling this clearing, and upon gathering what the shaman deemed were enough, Grimtuck did as he was told and made a fire, which the old shaman used to brew a soup of some sort using the berries and a few other ingredients brought by the old dwarf. Grimtuck and the shaman drank of the sickly sweet brew, and within a very short time span, Grimtuck learned firsthand why the ceremony was called the Ritual of Many Colors. His pupils were the size of the full moon, he laughed hysterically, he wept uncontrollably, and he confronted many, many uncomfortable truths about himself. The shaman preached of their connection to nature, each other, the gods, and the universe. Grimtuck drank deeply of the shaman's words and the brew, vomited numerous times, and just as he thought his mind might explode due to the intense weight of his perceived connection to all things, they were visited by a true force of nature. A bright light emanated deep from within the woods and approached them. After what felt like eons, it made its way through the forest and stepped out into the clearing, revealing itself to be a splendid elk, standing 10 feet tall and shining so bright it pained Grimtuck, who had to shield his eyes from the glare, although he would later recall, after the fact, the grandfather shaman did not avert his eyes one bit. Grimtuck stood in awe of the creature with his mouth agape, until the old shaman grasped his arm and bade him to kneel before the elk. And in his mind he heard the creature speak, not so much in words, but in ideas and dreams. "You have entered my grove and drank of the fruit of the waking dream. Tell me why you have entered this sacred space." Grimtuck responded out loud, "I wish to ascend to the role of chief of the Shatterchain tribe as my father before me." The elk responded, "Why?" "To protect the forests, rivers, and all who dwell within, to do honor to the land, assure the continuance of the people, and destroy those who would poison and befoul that which we hold sacred," Grimtuck stated proudly. "To whom do you wish to destroy?" asked the elk. "Those of the Crimson Tears tribe, who would subjugate and kill those who mean them no harm. They are a plague upon the world." "I know all too well of the blight that is the Crimson Tears, and whom they serve. They are an abomination to nature. And you alone are not enough for this task. If you are permitted to ascend to the role of chief as you are, you will bring death upon yourself and the whole of the Shatterchain tribe." Grimtuck's heart sank, and he felt as if the wind had been knocked out of him. He'd been preparing for this role his entire life. He took a deep breath, rose to his feet, and stood tall before the elk. "It is my destiny to lead the Shatter Chains. I am Grimtuck, the strongest. I killed a man at 9, led my first hunting party at 11. I have hunted abominations, brokered peace between foes, and brought low those who would defile the sacred spaces of the forest. What do you ask of me? Speak the name of any foul beast, and I shall travel leagues on foot to bring you back its head. I'll scale the highest mountain blindfolded, cross the mightiest river with a boulder strapped to my back. Just name the task, and I will prove to you I am worthy of the role of chief." He didn't see so much as feel the elk smile. "Foolish child, you see all tasks before you as enemies to be felled or obstacles to be surmounted. So I will provide you with the task that can't be so easily bested. You must leave behind the tribe tonight and go out into the world. There you will seek out a partner who is your equal in strength. Win her love, and together you will return to the Shatterchain tribe and rule as one. Only upon completing your task are you to return to the people. Ignore this decree and see your people led to destruction by your hand." Grimtuck said nothing. He stood, blank-faced and confused. The elk, almost in calm disregard, began to graze a bit, and in that time the silence began to stretch into an eternity. Grimtuck wanted to protest, wanted to proclaim how none were stronger than him, how he had dozens of marriage proposals from the women of his tribe and could easily find a bride with combat prowess from within the Shatterchains or a neighboring tribe. But he knew better than to question the decree of gods, the forces of nature, or wherever this creature fell within that spectrum. A myriad of emotions washed over him in that time, and finally, he composed himself, straightened his shoulders, and spoke. "So be it. I shall go out into the world and find a bride who is my equal, and together we shall return to the tribe, take our rightful place as chief and chiefess, and bring about the end of the Crimson Tears." The elk raised its head and began to slowly fade away. "Wait! Where shall I begin my search?" He felt a faint whisper in the back of his mind. Not so much a word, but a picture of the ocean and the shore. And like that, the creature was gone. Grimtuck, upon coming back to sobriety, broke camp, bade farewell to the old shaman, asked him to send a message of love to his parents, and made his way to the coast, where he fell in with a group of pirates, eventually ascended to the role of captain, and discovered disturbing tales of an island in the middle of the sea, requesting only the strongest of warriors. He had heard rumblings of this island, depending on whom he asked, apparently held immense riches or terrible dread to those who dared step on its shores. And at that point, Grimtuck knew his fate lay on the island of Dakatur.
Our story begins when the world was new and the gods still strode across the land. As the living stone pushed through the waves, an island that would be the setting of our tale was formed, granting the early inhabitants a place to call home. Before wizards sat in their towers studying the cosmos, the tribe stared up in the sky, wondering what could be staring back. This quandary was quickly answered by a large object, streaking across the darkness above and falling within these young lands. Where it fell, the ground froze and the land became tainted. Now, in the current age, the land of Dakatur has flourished. An old king and his 2 children rule, with a compassion and love for all whom live on the land. The Etterwines are an old family, with a lineage being traced back to the original inheritors of the island. Having grown in age and worsening in health, the old king has locked himself within his castle, leaving the rule of this land to his children. One, a commanding leader, and the other, a wielder of ancient magics. Though not frequently visited, this small island chain off the northern coast of Ankarome is much more, shall we say, welcoming to travelers than its western neighbors, even going as far as requesting aid from the rulers of the Sword Coast in times of great need. That time is once again upon us, as the daughter of the king has sent out heralds to request the aid of willing adventurers. Truthfully, If you were to ask any sailor on the dock, he would tell you legends and warnings of brave warriors traveling to this far isle, never to return again. Some believe they have found peace and settled down, others that they have found peace in death. This is where our heroes begin their flight to the main island, be it by the request of the young ruler or by some more mystical means. They set out on the high seas in search of many things. Some search for wealth, some for purpose, some fame, and even some still for prophecy of which they yet do not understand.
Hey everybody, Chris here. I really wanted to get this out to you as a thank you from myself and the crew included. We want to thank you for all of your support on every platform we've been on so far. We have an exceptional following on our socials, at least certainly larger than I would have ever expected a small podcast like ourselves. If you get a chance, check out who we follow or who follows us on Twitter, and just understand that every single one of those people is either attached to an amazing podcast or show themselves, or just an amazing person who you should be following too. But for now, again, this is a bonus episode. This isn't a regular story. I just wanted to thank you for everything you all do to keep us going and pushing us forward to get this out to you. Again, we have our new sponsor with dicebot.com. We have a few other things in the works as we go. We just recently held our first Twitch stream, which was amazingly fun and will be happening on a much more regular basis. Granted, we probably won't stream the actual podcast, but there are many other things we'll be streaming. Elijah, who is Grimtuck, will be streaming art as he draws more of our character portraits, updates the previous ones, or even updates other things he's drawn himself. I know I'd like to personally stream some point-and-click adventure games like the old Sierra classics. I'm thinking Quest for Glory first, but I'm not sure. And I might have caught Elduin's ear with that one, and he might be streaming with me. I also know that myself and Loud Scout, or Justin, will be streaming painting some minis, and I know a couple of us, like Metolius or Matt, are very good at that, so hopefully we can get someone a little bit better off at painting than myself or Loud Scout to show us how it's done. Anyways, we're going to be streaming a lot more. If you would like to watch us, find us at twitch.tv/swordcastadventures. We are trying to make this a semi-regular thing, so we'll definitely be announcing as soon as we know when a new stream will be up. You can also, of course, find us on our usual socials, including Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, where we post on a regular basis, at /theswordcast. And of course, you can always listen to us on Libsyn, Podomatic, Podbean, SoundCloud, /The Swordcast Adventurers, or even now on Google Music Play. I'm also going to be planning on putting it out on YouTube at our channel, most likely www.youtube.com/theswordcast. I'll figure it out and let everyone know as soon as we know. We had some requests, so I'm definitely going to put that up there, as well as put up our live streams. So if you were not there to watch it, you will be able to see it. And now, as usual, thank you so much for listening. We are brand new at this game, and if you could rate and review us, it would mean the world. But for now, thank you all. You're amazing. Have a wonderful evening, day, and or whenever you happen to be listening to us. And you'll hear from us soon. Bye-bye.